Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts.
Welcome back, Ben. Time for another rip-roaring podcast.
Yeah, we are quickly coming up on like podcast 100. So
Wow.
countdown to little milestone there for you and I.
Yeah.
So major prize to anyone that can honestly say they've listened to every single one of them, because
Oh man, that's the prize.
thank you,
in and
but
of
I'm
itself.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
I was gonna say 100 feels like a lot, but then it also doesn't feel like we've done 100. So it's a weird feeling.
When you're having this much fun, Adam, does it really work?
That's
Does
right.
it really work?
That's what they say.
Hard pivot to a
Yep.
not so fun topic.
Yeah.
We've kind of called this podcast "For God's Sake, Get Insurance." As planners, I think we want to talk about all the different aspects of planning, and insurance is certainly not the fun one. We're talking about morbid things, and as you and I kind of piece together some notes, maybe this is a little teaser for the magazine coming out in another week or two. Our experiences in life, will shape the way that we think and feel about money. And it's like statistically impossible to run into somebody who hasn't lost a loved one, who hasn't had a really sad story to tell, hopefully not a painful story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a reason why we talk about the role of life insurance and planning to hopefully not have emotional travesties become a financial one. So I'll stop because I don't want to take away like all the key lines here that we kind of have prepped, but let's be a little raw today and just talk about the importance of life insurance and planning.
Yeah. So from a planning aspect, so I think everybody knows insurance in general is something that you either are required to have or it's nice to have it in case you need it, right? Just it's insurance in general. It's why we have homeowners insurance, or you have car insurance, health insurance. It's for the what if or the oh crap moments. You'd like to have something. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, right? That whole saying.
Yeah. How many times has there been the phone call to us or the message, somebody has passed away, your heart drops, but then I can tell you, I've had the experience where my second thought is, thank God they had that life insurance.
Right.
Nobody's ever called and been like, I'm sorry we did that.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, so then on that note, when we think from a planning perspective, we would say there's a couple of foundational aspects to planning that we want to make sure that these boxes are checked first before diving too deep. And in life insurance in this instance is what we're going to be talking about is one of those kind of four foundational elements. It's making sure you have a cash reserve. Are you living within your means, right? Saving for a rainy day, spending less than you're earning, having the right insurances depending on your situation, and making sure you have at least some estate plan documented as kind of the foundation.
Yeah. So said differently, if we're talking about these being foundational elements, in our opinion, right, you're going to go through different phases of life, but in our opinion, there's really not a scenario at any age where you shouldn't have some sort of insurance and you should not have some sort of estate plan. And I think that just comes down to anything can happen at any time, right? Mm-hmm. Premature death is a thing. I know that you have people in your life that have passed away at our age or younger, and I have too. And it's numbing, but sadly it's the reality. So when we say they're foundational things, it's to get it. It's to take care of it. It's to check those boxes.
Yeah. And there's many different ways to go about that. Maybe we'll get into maybe not some of those specific details, but just give some ideas on trying to put it into perspective. Having a life insurance can mean so many different things. There's so many different types of coverage that you can get. associated costs with that vary widely, depending on what you're looking for. So it really is situational, but we'll kind of go through then at just a bare minimum. Having something is better than nothing. That was, so to give you credit, those were your words before we started to record. And we'll throw out some different scenarios that, we think it may apply.
So let's use that as the segue. What is the advice when we think about having people do this and we're saying you need to do this? Then we can kind of come at this from two angles. Let's educate a little bit on what that means, but let's also recognize as planners, like why people don't do it, and maybe there are some misconceptions there. So let's just start at the top. When we say it's a foundational piece, why should it be there? What are those situations where we feel like life insurance needs to be there to cover what?
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, it's if somebody else, anybody in the world is relying on you or your income for support, then you probably need some life insurance. Just boom, right off the top. Because we were talking to a client not that long ago, younger person, isn't married, doesn't have a child. The need for insurance may not necessarily be very strong in that situation, right? But you can make arguments depending on what else they have going on in their life that it still may make sense. But just as a baseline, if there is somebody else kind of relying on you and you're not here or your income is not here, then it's worth at least having that conversation to review your situation.
Yeah. And so being a little bit more specific, you're talking about income replacement. Like I need this person's income, but usually that's because I'm supporting a mortgage.
Right.
I've got children. Those children I want to have education paid for at some point.
Right.
There are specifics in somebody's life that we could talk about, specific goals and what those amount to. But at its most basic form, I'm now imagining the most, and I know you're knowing what I'm talking about, the most recent scenario. Okay, well, they weren't even married yet, but there's a house, there's a mortgage, and therefore now the income isn't there for one person to support that, and that's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna use that example as kind of a segue into sometimes why people don't think about doing it. I think at a younger age, and I mean, feel like I'm still young. I don't know about you. That's a lie. I feel really old most days, but I think I'm still young. I think there is an element of like, I've got this, they call it the Superman complex. Like it won't happen to me, so I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, I think that in general is just, that is a human thing, and it doesn't necessarily just apply to life insurance, right? That's a lot of things in life that happens to other people. That doesn't happen to me. It's not going to happen to me, so I don't have to worry about it. That's a big one. I think the other part, or another part, is just it's so easy to just put off and procrastinate. And I think we've talked about that in other podcasts and talking about estate planning in general, which is a tie-in here. But it's one of those things it's not a pleasant thought exercise to go through. It's not that they're not fun conversations to have. And for many of us, it's just way easier to avoid than actually kind of face head on and tackle.
Well, and I wonder if there's misconceptions too, especially if we're talking about let's go through the different phases of life. We were just talking about the situation where you're young, you're just getting started. Maybe it's a mortgage, it's kids. Somebody else is really dependent on that income. You maybe need a lot of insurance, but a lot of insurance, the cost of insurance is really relative to your age and your health. So
right.
I think there's probably a misconception if we're just talking about a simple term policy, meaning it may run out at some point and you hope that you outlive that. I know we just did a podcast that said less than 3% of the times those things pay out.
Yep.
But to a 25-year-old, what are we talking about here? $250,000 worth of insurance is going to cost what?
Yeah, depending on what that term is, 10 or 20 years, you're looking at, $10 to $20 a month, depending on their health.
So it's certainly not like cost prohibitive, right? I think your point of, is it Superman complex? Is it procrastination? This is why the title should be, for God's sake, just get the insurance. Like, put something in place. Think about the things in your life that you spend more than, $20 a month on,
Yeah.
and just get it done.
Yeah. So where do you want to go from there?
You go through this phase of life where, okay,
Yeah.
now you get a little bit older. Maybe you're not having kids at a younger age, or you haven't taken the leap into a mortgage earlier. I know we did this prep, so stay in that vein. A 40-year-old couple, has the cost gone up dramatically from a 25-year-old to a 40-year-old?
Yeah, surprisingly not
Nope.
that much, which was interesting. And I mean, it's, for everybody listening, we are licensed to sell insurance. It's not a huge component of our business, but we do have access to kind of run these quotes through a third party that we work with. So again, we don't do a ton of insurance, but it was surprising to me to see how close it really was, the difference between a 25-year-old and, in our example now, a 40-year-old. So again, depending on health, depending on that term, but you're talking $15 to $30 a month for that same 250,000 of coverage. So even there, again, it shouldn't be cost prohibitive. There are other types of insurance that do have much higher price tags associated with them. But I think it does illustrate the point that from a cost standpoint, that shouldn't be too big of a hurdle, in approaching it.
Depending on who you work for, life insurance may be a group benefit, and you may have the option to take more than just what they maybe provide as a benefit, call it 50,000, and start to add multiples on that. Your choice, and you're paying into that, but it may be a very easy way to go and get more insurance for a period of time if you feel like there's a greater need. It's just, the point is, it needs to be a conversation. And even if you're getting into that middle age period of life where, all right, now maybe the kids are a little bit older, maybe they're out of the house, I'm getting closer to retirement, life insurance may still play a role, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that, because as you were talking earlier, we've often kind of framed it as there's a curve. It's the insurance curve of life, right? When you are maybe younger, or if you have the mortgage, you have the kids, you have a family that you're supporting, or kind of that is relying on you for income and assets, that's when you need probably the most amount of insurance that you may need your entire life.
And it should be the cheapest time of your life too.
Right. And yes, that you are younger and hopefully healthy, that the cost associated with that shouldn't be crazy. And as you age, right, hopefully, say someone's in their 50s and 60s, took out a mortgage, had kids, hopefully the kids are at a school, out of the house, off mom and dad's payroll. Hopefully the mortgage is all but paid off, or already gone. Like those kind of inputs to the process may now lead to, well, now maybe you don't need as much, or you may not need as much insurance now later in life. But I think what you just said, there are other reasons to have life insurance later in life that may not necessarily be to replace income, or to pay off a mortgage, or to pay off some debt. It can now go to an estate and a legacy planning conversation, because life insurance, more often than not, is a tax-free asset to whoever's going to inherit that, whoever's going to be the beneficiary.
Yeah, my mind goes so many places. So the good part about it, getting it earlier in life, again, is cost. As you have more income and less need, I think we've said this in other places. But the point is to get the coverage you need, pay as little as possible, and then get rid of it when you don't need it anymore.
Right.
But when do people get sick? When is the time to worry about that? God forbid it's a cancer diagnosis. It's anything of that nature. As long as you have that term policy in place, you can convert that into something permanent. You can have a policy, if cash flow works for you, that you are building some equity in it, that it is going to last your whole lifetime. There's just so many different ways to go about it. The point is, in my world, to this podcast, start it young, get that coverage you need. And to your point, there's so many different ways that you can then try to leverage that strategy into something new, something that fits the new need later in life, all because you started it earlier.
Yeah, and so that's a great point, and it is that future flexibility, or the future options that you have once you have coverage, you do give yourself some other pivot points in the future that, horrible health diagnosis. Now you can kind of decide, is this still the right fit? Do I have other options? Again, just having it up front is kind of the key, because once you get on the other side of maybe your health is declining, or you just have one of those just kind of pop-up surprise diagnosis, that then is removed from the table as an option. Life insurance, more often than not, in the face of something significant like that. So having it early, to your point, while you're young, while you're healthy, just gives you other flexibility and other options potentially later too.
Because I feel like we come across that a lot, where we meet with the client, sometimes a client we've known for a little while, and they're like, huh, so I had this little policy, my parents started it for me or whatever, it was enough to bury me as a kid. It was $10,000, $25,000 worth of a death benefit, but now here I am at 60, 65 years old, and there's $20,000 of cash value in it.
Yeah.
Great. Now let's talk about leveraging that maybe into your long-term care concerns, or let's talk about leveraging that into a different policy that may serve a different purpose for your legacy. It's not all lost, but I'm going back to the beginning here. It all starts with the fact that maybe they were way better about it, the generation before us, because it was door-to-door insurance salesmen, and we can make that sound like it was a horrible thing, but people took care of it. So I don't want our generation and the generation below us to just live in the Superman complex where I don't have to address that. The generation before us was probably better about doing it.
Yeah, and I think on top of that potential Superman complex, it is, while you are younger, you have other bills, you have other expenses. This being another one just doesn't feel like it's high priority, right, on the list. But the fear there, or the potential outcome, is, okay, well, when later in life, when you feel like you can afford it, by the way, you said this earlier, the cost also increased. So by foregoing that, it may end up being a wash in the end, or it may end up costing you more by waiting. Maybe you're not as healthy as you were in your 20s and 30s. So I don't know. That just popped into my head as another kind of way to look at it.
And fair point. I'll just make the joke here, because we did some of this too. Like that to me is a question of priorities, because you're going to spend $15 to $20 a month on your Netflix subscription. You're paying $25, $30 for a case of beer, or $20 for a pizza pie on a Friday night.
Yeah,
it's not cost prohibitive. And if you really do buy into the fact that life is going to throw you curveballs, we don't know what's coming, lean on the fact that you've probably heard and seen experiences around you of other people. God forbid it was somebody close to you. This stuff can happen. So just get it done.
Yeah,
just get it done.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that. Get it done.
Then we'll leave it there. It's much like we talk about a will. Let's put life insurance in that camp. These are things you just have to do.
Yep. Yeah. So if you don't have insurance, or you have insurance and you just kind of want to talk through your options, want to review what you have, does it fit your situation, let us know. That's why we're here.
Thank you, sir. We'll
All right.
We'll move to something a little more upbeat for next time.
That's my promise.
You got it. All right.
All right.
Have a great rest of the day.
All right. Bye.
Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in the show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.